You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is January 15th, 2026, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we are bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region, and also bringing you the news from a liberty perspective. Today, I have with me Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And my name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host. So we are going to be talking about a few different stories today. We're going to kick off with a California story, kind of a goose that killed what is it? The killing the goose that laid the golden egg. So yeah, it's sort of California socialists have kind of figured out a way to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, sort of driving billionaires out of California. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we are going to get into all of the chaos happening in Minnesota, and then we'll get into a few of the wacky ideas some people have about how law enforcement should aim their weapons when they when they wind up pulling them out. So, but before we do any of that, let's. I did want to bring up our local constitution discussion group. Let me bring up a visual here. So I just wanted to remind people, if they are local and watching in public access, the Constitution discussion group that meets every other Thursday of, I think it's first and third Thursdays of every month. They are currently doing a series that kicked off with the origins of liberty. And on 122 coming up, they're going to talk about the genealogy of liberty. And then they have several other topics as well in this particular series. So, definitely check that out if this is something that interests you and you're in the Sacramento area and want to get involved with similar minded people. So that brings us to our quote of the day. And we always try and pick something that is related to some of the stuff we're going to be talking about. And I thought this time it'd be cool to have something related to this whole tax thing in California. So here we have a quote. We've had one quote from him once before, from Winston Churchill. And the quote is kind of bucks the way Californians think about taxing. I think so. So I thought it was appropriate to bring this up. And he says, "I contend that for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to pull himself up by the handle." And for anybody who kind of really understands, just like if you are thinking that you're going to get rich simply by taxing people, taxing is sort of at best a zero-sum game, and anybody who really understands it realizes there are losses there. so he'd be doing well if he just remained where he was in the bucket, but ultimately you're going to be poorer than you started if you have a system that is just going heavy on taxation. And you can kind of understand why that might be if you really think about it, because the people who are taxing you, they do not have the same incentives that you have to spend your dollars wisely.
Exactly.
So they're going to make a lot of bad decisions about how that money. There's going to be a lot of fraud and waste. We're going to talk a lot about that too. Both, not so much on California this time, although I'm sure we'll get into that in the coming weeks. But in Minnesota, you're seeing that right now play out, where a lot of people's tax dollars are just being flushed down the toilet. So, Leon, what do you think about this quote?
Well, it's a good one. I really do like the quote. I like the analogy that's embedded in the quote. Because these idiots that we have for politicians never realize that when you place taxes on the economy, is that burden, is that weight. You're trying to tax yourself into prosperity. You see, the socialists, that is what we have an abundance of them here in California, is always concerned about the health of the government, the financial health of the government. And they totally ignore the financial health of the citizens who they are about to tax. That is always their mentality. And you always hear this expression, oh, we have to billionaires, millionaires, and billionaires have to pay their fair share. Well, what the hell is fair? Right here in California, I think there's good evidence to say that the top 1% of income earners in California pay about 45% of the income taxes here in California. I think that is grossly unfair. Okay? I think that is grossly unfair. If you believe in fairness and this so-called equality and everything else and that kind of stuff, why the top owners have been paying such a large percentage of the taxes? But this is a mindset of the idiots that run our state. Okay? And I know that we're going to talk about this wealth tax issue. This is just a burden upon the economy. And when you do put these burdens on the economy, wealth creation is stymied. Business formation is slowed down. And when you're slowing down business formation, you're slowing down the creation of jobs. When you slow down the creation of jobs, you're slowing down the amount of people you'll have paying taxes. You're actually shrinking your tax base. So you're doing the very thing that you're doing is contradicting the outcome that you're seeking. It's unbelievable, the stupidity that's going here. So Winston Churchill is absolutely right. You can never tax yourself to prosperity, because if you could tax yourself to prosperity, the Soviet Union would have been paradise and heaven right here on earth.
Yeah. It sort of hasn't worked anywhere.
Exactly.
Imagine something with a track record that seems to have worked nowhere in taxing yourself to prosperity, and yet it seems to be one of the best sales pitches ever because people keep buying something that never works. So maybe these guys are better marketers than a lot of capital.
You see, this is the thing. They are better marketers than us because you know what they do, though, Jason? They always come up with these nice words. Oh, we have to talk about fair share. Like you have to be fair.
And that's something I wanted to jump in on, too, because you said fair share earlier. And keep in mind, this word fair share. Now, I'd ask anybody from the party that calls itself, the biggest proponents of the science, define fair share. I mean, they probably have more trouble defining fair share than they do defining what a woman is.
What a woman is, exactly.
They can always tell you it's more. That's
yes. The fair share is always more. I know someone quite well who is, I'll have to call him a socialist. And so one day we got into this big argument, and it was about taxing, and taxes in the economy and all that. So I asked him, well, what? And he used the word fair share. So I asked him, well, what is that? He said, you know what his answer was? You don't know what fair share is? No, I don't. I hear you left-wingers use it all the time. What does it mean? Up to this day, this happened about a year ago. Up to this day, I still haven't gotten a definition of fair share. Up to this day. Okay? And I think we have talked about it twice since that time.
Somehow the fair share is always that other guy over there that has stuff. He pays more and I pay less. Yes. That's what the fair share always is. So they're consistent. I mean, you've got to give them that.
Yeah.
They're not precise, but they're consistent.
Consistent. They're consistently wrong. Yes. And consistent at bringing misery to its citizens. But this is just a problem, though, that these are you talk about marketing, and this is absolutely true. They market these schemes and gimmicks to people, and people consistently fall for them. The reason why they fall for these gimmick and schemes is because they're always marketing free stuff. Because if you say, well, if we raise the taxes, billionaires will pay their fair share, and then we could fund education for kids. They tell you that, and all of a sudden your stomach get weak, your brain go to your backside, and all of a sudden you can't think straight anymore. You hear fear, and you hear we're doing for the children. The among the things California has put on the ballot for the children I mean, these children should be better off than anybody else in the world. But, we still keep on. We have to do it for the children. Or nowadays, let's talk about, we have to do it for the homeless. And on the damn nonsense goes. But
and after all of that for the children, somehow they're worse at reading, they're worse at math, and they can't even tell what gender they are.
Tell me this. Yes. We always doing it for the children, and we don't educate the children to be able to decipher your bullshit. Oh, I shouldn't say that word. Sorry.
Well, but and before we jump off of this, though, just in this fair share, I mean, in what world is 1% paying up to 50%? This is what AI is saying. AI is saying, this is from Google, California's top 1% of earners contribute a significant portion of the state's income tax revenue, typically ranging from around 38 to nearly 50%. Though this fluctuates with economic conditions like stock market performance. And a lot of that is because they're getting capital gains, and that's based upon how companies do. And if there's a downtime, then that percent's going to be a little bit lower, because some of them may not be reporting any earnings in some of those years. And that's why they're not paying anything in those years, which really upsets Elizabeth Warren. Then she wants to come after their wealth. She says, what? You didn't earn anything? Well, I want what you've got. That I want some of your house. I want some of your business. And that's actually what we're going to get into in the first topic. It is the wealth tax that California is looking to put on the ballot. And let's we got a video to kind of bring everybody up to speed on that. But it is kind of bad news for what it's already doing, and it hasn't even been voted on yet. But just the fear of it is driving billionaires away who are paying a lot of our taxes. So let's check it out.
California voters may decide in November to impose a 5% wealth tax on residents worth at least $1 billion. So that's about 200 billionaires and about $100 billion in revenue that's on the line. Now, the twist is that the tax will be retroactive to January 1st, 2026. Lawmakers say that's to prevent billionaires from fleeing the state before the bill is passed.
People can move. When you're at that level of wealth, you have an enormous amount of flexibility.
Even though the vote is nearly a year away, the deadline to move and avoid the tax has already passed.
So there you have it. For Californians, it's not simply enough to tax the wealthy. They now want to take beyond just earnings. They want a chunk of the wealth that has already been taxed from these billionaires. And if you think about it, what they're after here is a one-time grab of $100 billion. What's on the line is there's about $2 trillion worth of billionaires approximately in California. And if you just do the rough math, what they're putting at risk is, if you assume that money earns potentially 10% a year, roughly, in capital gains, that's about 13% for the state of California that they would be taxing. And if that money leaves, if all of it left, you take 10% of 2 trillion, that's about 200 billion. And then you take 13% of 200 billion, that's about $26 billion annually that they're putting at risk to try for a one-time grab of $100 billion. It's just nuts. But the big issue is that most of these billionaires, their wealth is in their companies. So if you wanted to hit them with a $5 billion tax, they might have to sell their assets or their company in order to get that. So it's sort of cannibalizing their holdings, and it's even uncertain that company is it's just an estimate of what it's worth, right? I mean, you haven't sold it; they're just taking an estimate. So this is pretty nuts. Let's see how this what effect this is already having on those population of billionaires that are being targeted by greedy socialists in California.
To those with that California derangement syndrome, I'll repeat, it's time to update your talking points.
Gavin Newsom says his state is thriving, but the people with the most skin in the game are heading for the exit. New reporting shows that at least half a dozen billionaires have already left the Golden State. Up to 20 more could be packing their bags as a proposed 5% wealth tax remains on the table. The latest, Google co-founder Larry Page is headed to Miami, Florida. But he's not alone. Peter Thiel, Larry Ellison on the move to red states like Texas and Florida.
Many of these people that are leaving are lifelong Democrats, supporters of the very people in the process that now is turning on them. The exodus from California is millionaires, billionaires, but it's also working people who more and more can't find opportunity.
And so there you go. It's, these are the goose that laid the golden egg. I mean, let's think about that. If these people with this top 1%, if they're paying nearly half of all of the income taxes, you want them to stay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Go. It's a great deal that you're getting already, but California, socialists are so greedy, that's not enough. And they're going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. Some of these have already relocated to places like Florida and other things. So anyways, go ahead, Leon.
It's not only that they're greedy, they're also very economically illiterate. Okay, so but this is one of the adverse impacts of taxation, and this is why Winston Churchill is so correct. Is that you drive away your income base. You incentivize your income base to look for ways not to pay the taxes, whether it's through loopholes or through actual moving away from the jurisdiction. In this case, it will be California, and this is what the adverse effects of these taxes. These wealth taxes have been tried in other countries. I think France had a wealth tax at one time. Sweden had a wealth tax at one time, and then every single time these wealth taxes they fail, and they fail miserably. They never live up to expectation in the sense of the amount of income that it was supposed to produce for the government. It have never lived up to expectations. And it will be no different here in California if we're so stupid as to pass this on our ballot and impose this upon the billionaires. And I guess when the billionaires leave, then they'll go after the millionaires, and when the millionaires decide to leave, then they'll come to us, the middle class folks, among the California citizens, because these schemes they never work. They have been tried many times before. Well, socialism in general never works anyway. Okay, but they have been tried so many places before. I do not know why people who have a brain most of the times continue to fall for this nonsense. Socialism does not work. Taxing yourself to prosperity, as Winston Churchill said, taxing yourself to prosperity is a gimmick. It's a gimmick that never works, and still we fall for the garbage because people are always incentivized by free stuff. We're going to take money from somebody else and we're going to buy free stuff for you, and you fall for this damn nonsense, but you're destroying the very foundation of your economy, which is the income earners, the wealth producers, and the people who pay the most taxes in your jurisdiction. That is what taxes does for you as a citizen within this jurisdiction. It destroys the most important thing, which is the productivity of the people within our land.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because, we use the quote from Winston Churchill, but he was the prime minister of England during World War II. And
yes,
he was a hero to the country at that time because he essentially was the spearhead of the fight against Hitler during those years of World War II. And his nation even kind of wanted to fold underneath him, and he kind of kept them going. And in the end, he was kind of the glue that held them together. And right after the election, right after the war, he lost his first election to a socialist. Or people who were pushing more socialist policies, and he said it was a bad idea. And that's the lure of socialism, right? I mean, is it free stuff? What have you done for me lately? Sorry, Winston, but
that's how it works. That's how it works. Just a minor correction, Jason. Is not the Prime Minister of England, was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Okay. Oh, okay. England is just one unit of the United Kingdom. Because anyway, that's just trivia. Yeah. Yes, but this was one of the oddities that Winston Churchill, after so bravely fighting off Hitler. I mean, of course, the United States played a very large role in that fight. And the people kicked him out. They kicked him out, and they went to I think they went to the Labour Party, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that was it. But they were essentially people who were much more socialist oriented.
Yes, yeah, they thought the unions were a good thing and all this other damn nonsense and stuff, and wanted to raise taxes. I think they actually did raise taxes to quite a high level. I can't remember what it was exactly, but this is what the people always fall for. Here's a man. Okay, this is a very good example. A very good example. Here's a man who should be a hero by every measure. He held the country together at one of the greatest crises the country have ever faced. He held the country together. He led the fight. I mean, this man did extraordinary things. I mean, yes, he wasn't perfect, but he did extraordinary things for the United Kingdom and for the world, for that matter. And as soon as the war is end, the Labour Party comes along, we're going to give you free stuff. We're going to give you free stuff. Don't worry. We're going to give you free stuff. Where there's healthcare, we're going to give you free stuff. You want subsidized bus ride? We're going to give you free stuff. And the people fell for it. And they kicked out the man who should have been a hero, who should have been leading them for the next 10 years maybe. But that's how politics works.
Yeah.
It's too hard there.
Well, and keep in mind, we spend over $300 billion in this state, and we still have an endless amount of problems. It seems like we've got homelessness. We've got, that's just like the worst in the nation. We have all kinds of issues with housing, prices. People are finding things unaffordable in a lot of ways. What are, our education system is, kind of seems to be faltering by comparison. So there's
they only teaching them kids about transgenderism. That's all. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But it's just one thing after another. And it's sort of like, and yet they want more money,
Always
more money. And of course that just leads to it just seems to all be lost to grift, which is actually kind of leading to our next story that we wanted to talk about. And that's what's going on in Minnesota right now. And obviously there's a lot of, protesters on the street, and, we're going to get to all that. But first we wanted to jump into some of the fraud that's going on there, and this has been stuff that has been uncovered by, we've talked about it before on the show. We've had, there have been probes going on for the last several years, but once Trump came into office, things really started to pick up a little bit. They put some federal prosecutors on the task over there, and they were finding ridiculous amounts of fraud into healthcare and autism. And so we talked about this before, so I'm just going to give a kind of an edited down version of the video we showed before, but just to kind of give you a sense of the amount of fraud. So let me show you that video.
But it looks like Minnesota taxpayers are going to eventually be out billions of dollars. And that staggering prediction comes from the man who's been serving as acting U.S. Attorney for Minnesota, Joe Thompson.
From feeding our future to autism treatment centers to housing programs.
Let's find out a little bit more from this Eyewitness News how the autism program worked, because I actually did a report on that, and it's pretty staggering.
Take a look at this graph showing the explosion in this program. This is the amount of money the state has paid in Medicaid claims to autism treatment providers using your tax dollars. You can see in 2017, not that much, just more than $1 million. But you see the gradual growth here. In 2021, more than $80 million. But look at last year, more than $220 million paid out in claims, with a grand total of just shy of $700 million. This is what state investigators are now looking at.
Sounds like either there's a lot of autism in Minnesota or there's a lot of fraud.
As 5 Investigates first reported, 1 in 5 autism centers in the state is now under an investigation after a new crackdown on fraud. DHS says it stepped up enforcement late last year, around the time the feds raided these 2 clinics suspected of billing the state more than $20 million for services never provided.
So surely somebody from the government is checking on who's getting this money.
We have an idea of how many of those are not even real?
We are visiting every single one.
Is this now, for some providers, the first time that they've ever had a site visit?
I can't speak to whether it's the first time some providers have had a site visit.
So there you go. I mean, the state was paying money to these places, and they weren't even bothering to check in a lot of cases if these were real places. And that was what was going on, about maybe a month ago or 2 months ago. This was kind of the big news out of Minnesota that, essentially billions of dollars, had just, gone missing in all these cases. Well, now recently, just a couple weeks ago, we had a kid named Nick Shirley, who is just a YouTuber. I mean, this is the type of thing that anybody can do, right? I mean, just somebody with a camera phone and walking around making his own videos. And he decided to get in there and do a video about all of the daycare fraud that was happening there, among other things. He was also looking, I think, a little bit at some of the healthcare fraud, but the daycare fraud is what he got all the attention from. And we're going to show some video of that in just a little bit. We're coming up on the break pretty quick for our public access, so I don't want to start the video until we're past that break. But yeah, I mean, and this is what's so extraordinary, though, because we're always telling people, what can you do in your community to move the ball for liberty? Well, Nick Shirley's doing it, just a young guy. I don't know if he's around 20 years old or maybe a little younger. I don't know. He doesn't look very old. And he was going around and showing just ridiculous examples of this fraud that the state was missing. All these daycare centers that had no kids there, and they were collecting millions per year. And it's just, it was absolutely nuts. I mean, Leon, did you have any thoughts right before we go to break?
Yes, the issue is about accountability, and the Democrats don't seem to like that. They never like accountability. They always want to have these lax laws, whether we're talking about voting or we're talking about the money that they give out to these businesses or these fake businesses. They never have accountability. They never have guardrails on those money. So we should not be surprised at the fraud that we're seeing in Minnesota right now. We can talk after the break.
Yeah. So we'll see what kind of surprise we're getting after the break. But if you're watching us on public access, that's all the time we have for you on public access. But you can catch the rest of our conversation at knuckleheadsofliberty.com, where we're going to talk about this and some of the violence going on in the protests right now, and just sort of the tragic way that's going. So check that out, and we got a lot more to talk about there. So yeah, Leon. So at this point, I guess I want to jump right into the Nick Shirley video, so people can see what we're talking about, because this is, in case you heard something about the state funding leering centers. we're going to show you what those are. In Minnesota, that's a thing. Here we go.
Largest fraud scandal in U.S. history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses. So much fraud, it could actually almost replace the entire GDP of Somalia. These fraudsters have worked hand in hand with the Minnesota government as they enabled billions of dollars to be given to fraudulent businesses underneath welfare purposes.
So Nick goes to business after business, and here we're going to see some of the results. There's way too much to show. The entire video that he did is about an hour long, and actually he just came out with another one too, so I'll be interested to check that out. I think it just dropped today. But anyways, let's take a look at least a couple of his encounters.
All right, we've arrived to ABC Learning Center. All the windows are blacked out. Let's see if anybody is here. This door is locked.
This facility is licensed for 40 children, 0 children. I've come by this place 100 times. I've never seen a child here, ever. The only thing I've ever seen is someone standing outside smoking.
What's crazy about this is that last daycare center is that green building right there. And the other daycare center right now is right here. These buildings should be operating as they're receiving literally millions of dollars. I knocked on the door, and to my surprise, somebody actually answered the door. Hello? Can we speak? I would like to check a child in the daycare. Why? Can I speak to a manager? Where can I get paperwork to file for my son? I wanted to put my son Joey in daycare. And after a few questions, the lady went silent. Looks like little Joey Shirley ain't going to daycare here. And now where are we going?
Lastly, we couldn't show you some of Nick's video without showing you the infamous Leering Center. It's supposed to be Learning Center, as he's going to mention there. But these fraudsters couldn't even spell the name right for a place that they expect people to drop their kids off to. And of course, the government seems to have no questions about this in Minnesota. Keep in mind, too, that Nick Shirley here is doing, he's just a citizen journalist. He is a YouTuber, and he's doing a job that the fake news media has just abandoned and hasn't bothered to cover.
So this is Quality Leering Center. I meant to say Quality Learning Center.
Don't open
They
up!
said they spelled learning wrong.
Don't open up!
How do you have ice here, ma'am? I'm literally a YouTuber.
Don't open up!
Ma'am, what do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Don't open up! We have ice!
And what do you think about this place being licensed for 99 children
Don't open up!
and getting $4 million over
Don't
the
open up! It's ice!
$4 million in the last 2 years?
Go away!
What do you think about that? Are you in favor?
away!
Are you in favor of that?
Go away!
You know
You're not welcome here.
Are you-
Shame on you!
Are you in favor of $1.9 million going illegally, fraudulently to this business that has Quality Learning Center but can't even spell learning right on the door?
Don't open up!
And recall, as we had shown on an earlier show, that the Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who represents this district and authored the 2020 Meals Act, from which a lot of this fraud has spawned, let's hear what she has to say about taking any ownership of this.
There are people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a linkage in that the money that they had stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system in not figuring that out and basically charging them.
So she literally is responsible for some of the legislation that people are defrauding. And then she takes no accountability for there being no guardrails. She's saying somebody else had to put the guardrails in. It's not her responsibility.
Not her responsibility. Yeah, of course not. Yeah, you know, I mean, the fraud that's ongoing in Minnesota, that, well, it's not been discovered, I should say, that is staggering. It really is. I mean, we're talking about 9 billion, 10 billion. I don't know what the number is. I don't know where this is going to land, because I'm hearing all kind of numbers. I heard first it was 1 billion. Now I'm hearing it's 9 billion. Now I'm hearing it could be up to 20 billion, and all kind of numbers. I don't even know what is true, but I know there's a lot of fraud going on. And it's happening in a state run almost exclusively by the Democrats. The thing is though, the thing that we really need to know, yes, we need to stop this fraud. We need to prosecute the people who are involved in it. It looks like it's a hell of a lot of Somalis are involved with this. Somali immigrants are involved in this. There might have been some American citizens in there, natural-born American citizens. I mean, some of these Somalis probably are American citizens, born here. But the point is, though, the more important thing that we have to find out, how much of this money, this fraudulent money, ended up with the DNC and with some of these Minnesota Democratic politicians. Because I think that is vitally important to know. Because not only these people are defrauding us, the Somali immigrants for the most part, but also the politicians like Ilhan Omar. I would bet money she's involved. I'm not making any allegations against her because I don't know this for a fact. But I'd be willing to bet money that woman is involved, have a financial interest in some of this thing. I would bet money on it. Okay.
She earned money over this period at a very fast rate. I mean, it's like at a Nancy Pelosi type of rate.
Exactly. They took the words out of my mouth, because I was just going to talk. They have to do this annual disclosure of the in Congress. You have to do the annual disclosure. When this woman went into the Congress, which I think was like 5-6 years ago, I think she disclosed, I think less than half, 100,000 or some kind of stuff like that, I think, in net assets. I don't have the numbers correct, but it was somewhere around there. Now I understand she recent disclosures could put her as $30 million. So how did that happen? Seriously, how did that happen? I know she's married to a relatively wealthy dude. I understand who she's married to, her third marriage. But how do you come in there with this little titty bit of money? Well, I mean, $100,000 maybe is not a little titty bit of money. Everybody, quite a few people would like to have that. But still, though, how your wealth explode like this? She and Nancy Pelosi have the same broker. I think I need that broker too, because I would.
Yeah, I actually think from where she started to where she's gotten to, Nancy Pelosi should be coming to Ilhan Omar for advice. Because, even though, Nancy Pelosi's worth a lot more from all of their insider trading that she's been allowed to do, the trajectory is not as steep as what Ilhan Omar has done over this period of time.
It's true.
So, yeah. I guess Ilhan Omar is just, she really needs to expand the number of daycares, maybe that she's running. but she knows some of the people who have been arrested in this thing, and she's literally done campaign events at some of their businesses. So this is not.
There are pictures of her and some of these people available on the internet.
Yeah. So anyways, it's something where there's probably a lot of fraud that's going to be uncovered, and hopefully it doesn't get delayed because of all of the political fighting that's going on right now about the underlying immigration issue. And that's part of the issue here. I mean, is that the Somali community, at least with respect to, I think, the daycare fraud, is like in fact, I'm not even sure how many of these are daycare people who've already been indicted on this stuff. But I mean, it's like 90% of the people who have been, singled out by the government are of Somalian descent.
Yes.
This fraud.
Well, I mean, it's a fact. I mean, one of Nick Shirley's video, I think the one that dropped today, he was trying to get some information from one guy, obviously of Somali descent. But I think he probably was born in America, and he was this is well, Nick Shirley, of course, asked him about the fraud. You know what he said? Oh, this is about America trying to get rid of Muslims. Oh, this is racism, and he's going on and on. He never once answered any of the questions related to the fraud. He started to play the victim card, and this is the problem we're going to have with these prosecutions, because they're going to play the victim card. Because I don't think this thing, honestly, is limited to California, or is it limited to the Somali community? Okay, I'm not California, Minnesota.
And directly to that point, that kind of brings us up to a related story, and we're not necessarily leaving this topic completely, but there are other states, and it's not just government that we're finding out is being taken advantage of. There was actually a shooting victims fund, a mass shooting victim fund in Maine that we're finding out now that has had a lot of money go to Somalian immigrants who had nothing to do with being shooting victims in the state of Maine. So let's go to the news story that News Nation ran about that. We've sort of edited it down to be able to give you the high points of it. So here we go.
Now we're here in Lewiston, Maine, which experienced one of the worst mass shootings in our country's history. And in the wake of that, our country rallied behind this community and raised millions for the survivors and victims' families. Now, those families are crying foul because they say a large chunk of that money, nearly 30% of it, went not to them, but to 29 different nonprofits. And these families are demanding answers.
So let's hear from a couple of the victims.
It's just terrifying. You can't even describe it.
Jennifer Zenka had been shot twice and didn't know if she'd make it.
As a nurse, my instinct just grabbed my arm and held it as tight as I could to keep myself from bleeding out.
18 were killed that day in Maine's deadliest mass shooting. The victims ranging in age from 14 to 76.
My nephew was killed in the shooting. He was my sister's only son, the middle child. He was the man of the family since he was 14 years old.
So what's different about this case than the Minnesota Somali fraud is government was the target of the fraudsters there. But here, it's actually nonprofit that was raising money for victims of a shooting that is the target of the fraud.
Local nonprofit, the Maine Community Foundation, established the Lewiston-Auburn Area Response Fund.
We all met in an auditorium in the school, and they told us that night that 100% of the funds would go to the victims. And then I received the email, too, to say that.
That email from the Maine Community Foundation says it is, quote, to help ensure survivors and victims know that 100% of all donations go to victims, survivors of this tragic event. But a year later, Amy investigated and uncovered that a big chunk of the money raised, $1.9 million, went not to the victims, but to 29 different nonprofits.
9 of the 29 are for immigrants only, nonprofits that serve the immigrant community in the Lewiston, Auburn-Lewiston area.
Groups like Empowered Immigrant Women Unite, Generation Noor, New Mainers Public Health Initiative, the Somali Bantu Community Association, and Gateway Community Services, which has been accused of misusing taxpayer funds and, after our reporting, was visited by Homeland Security.
So imagine nonprofits helping groups that have nothing to do with being victims of the shooting, taking money, and some of these being immigrant groups. And the scope of this fraud is just wild.
Jennifer, who received only $32,000, struggled to pay for her surgeries.
It didn't really hit me and really upset me until I was in a position with a $93,000 hospital bill that I couldn't cover.
Gateway Community Services,
right?
They received a lot more money than you did.
It does kind of re-victimize, where it just doesn't feel fair.
And so there you have it. I mean, it's just, and so we may be at the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, we've been talking about the government of Maine, or excuse me, Minnesota, and here was a shooting victims fund in Maine, and and just to bring people up to speed a little bit, but during the Biden administration, we had a massive influx of migrants into the country, and what we're seeing in Minnesota is a very concentrated amount of fraud amongst the migrant community there. So, so I mean, this very well may be playing out in a lot of other blue states, most likely blue states, because red states have kind of tried to resist, so much, hyper penetration of immigrants. But in places like Minnesota, it's just kind of like fling the doors open and
here we go.
Yeah.
But this sort of thing, this sort of.
Leon, before you go on, let me explain what this graphic is that I brought up here real quick. So this graphic shows the attempted illegal border crossings and how they were recorded and how they went up during the Biden administration. They're calling it the COVID era, but it was also mostly the Biden era. And if you look here, that you have these cyclical spikes that are happening, that go anywhere from, on a per month basis to maybe up to a couple 100,000, maybe 170,000 looks like the max of any years before that. And that was around the year 2002, I think it is 2001. And it kind of is cycling downwards to where, it's generally less in the preceding decade by less than 50,000 per month a year is how many of these they would detect at the border. But with the Biden administration, oh my gosh, it was like they were finding a ridiculous amount and then they were releasing them into the country.
Right, exactly.
So, you could just see the change in policy. It reminds me, I wanted to play the clip of Kamala Harris talking about, hey, I've been to the border. She hadn't been to the border and was pressed on that. And she looked so embarrassed. Well, she didn't look embarrassed. That's what's the problem. She just went right along saying, well, I haven't been to Europe either. I don't know what that had to do with anything, but darn it, that was a clip I wanted to have for the show. And I didn't bring that one up. But anyways, this is kind of showing some of the issues that we're going to be talking about, both in some of these protests and with some of this fraud. So I just wanted to clarify that for the audience, that it's really around this 2020 is where it just spikes and is up in all these years. And it doesn't start to come down until going into the 2024 elections, which is when suddenly Biden and Kamala realized they had to get it under control. So, and it was a major issue that helped Trump win that election, because now you can see Trump gets lower than it's ever been down here now. So,
but the thing is that I know right now we are focusing a lot on Minnesota, and it's even more scary when you consider Tim Walz, who is the governor of Minnesota. This man, I mean, if Kamala had won, I mean, I don't know how that's going to happen, but if he had won, he would right now be vice president of the United States. And all of this fraud went on right below his nose. But I think that if you're sailing in the ocean and you see an iceberg out there, you just see a small portion of that iceberg, and it sits above the water. What is below the water is much larger, much, much larger. And I think that is what's going on right now. Minnesota is just the tip of the iceberg. I will bet you there's fraud going on in any one of these Democratic states that have taken a lot of these so-called migrants. Okay? Any one of those states that have taken these migrants, I will bet you they have all kinds of fraud going on in those communities right now within those states. And the thing is that Biden and Kamala and previous some of the previous administrations, they allow these people to come across our borders. They not only allow these people to come across our border, they were offering them free stuff. Oh, come, we'll give you a hotel, we'll give you food, we'll give you this, and we'll give you that. They were even allowing these people, Kamala and Biden, were allowing migrants, these so-called migrants, they're really illegal aliens, they're allowing these so-called migrants to travel on planes using the piece of paper that ICE gave, the border patrol gave to them when they released them into the country. Now, I, as an American citizen, I cannot do that. When I walk up to the gate at TSA, I have to produce some sort of ID, right? Something, whether it's a driver's license or my passport card, I have to produce something. But these migrants, they were okay. They were just these special people. And this is what is causing now the backlash against migrants, okay? And I think it's going to get stronger because we're going to have a lot more fraud is going to be exposed in other states. We're already hearing, well, you just brought up Maine. We're already hearing there's some issues going on in Ohio. It haven't gotten big yet, but there's something going on in Ohio also, again, in a migrant community. And I will bet you money there's a big one going on here in California. We haven't gotten there yet because Gavin always talking about, we are so welcoming to migrants regardless of their immigration status, and we're going to pay for we're going to give them the free health care. You're offering free stuff to people.
What was it, Leon? And we've already seen one aspect of the fraud, and it's not so much a welfare fraud issue, but it was with commercial driver's licenses.
Yes.
Because they were literally giving driver's licenses to people who couldn't read English. How do you pass the test if you can't read English? Which is, I mean, when
unbelievable.
I took a Class C driver's license, which is just a non-commercial driver's license, you have to be able to read in order to answer the questions. There's no way around that. And the idea that as a commercial driver's license, you wouldn't have to do that, and we've already seen some fraud cases in some other states where migrants were hiring people to go in and claim that they were them and then take the test. So that's kind of, and of course we've seen some fatalities on the road recently with crashes involving commercial truckers who had, this questionable tests where, they couldn't read English and they had their license from here in California. So
this is just unbelievable, But the bigger problem in all of this, Jason, is that the Democrats just love to have these very lax standards. They don't want accountability. You look at all this thing about this fraud. It happened right under Tim Walz and his administration, right under their nose it happened. But that is not really the issue. The Democrats have this thing that where standards are always something they don't want to be around them. It's the very same problem we have with voting. No, we can't have voter ID. No, we can't have voter ID. And you know where all the frauded voter ID does, where the fraud with the elections, where they occur? In those very states where these people we don't need voter ID. Voter ID, these voter ID, they're really discriminatory because, poor black people, these poor black people, they don't have ID, so they wouldn't be able to participate in the election. This is the bullshit these people that's trying to run by us. And now we have seen so much fraud that is going on. We just had from the 2020 election, 54,000 votes should not have been counted because there's a very major chain of custody problem with the votes. We just found that out here the other day, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this is the kind of things that go on where standards and accountability is something we must throw to the wind. And then we must people must participate. We must open the border. Everybody must come in. We should not enforce the law. We should get all these migrants to come in. And what happened? We have before in Minnesota, and I'm sure elsewhere. We should not have standards for voting. And what happens? All sorts of people who should not be voting, especially through these mail-in ballots. No standards, don't worry about it. And the integrity of our elections suffer. And this is a real problem. This thing where the Democrats always think that they're looking out for people who have skin color like mine in terms of its hue. They're always looking out for us. But all they do is telling us how racist they are because they always want these low standards because we poor, dumb black people, we can't live up to these standards of white people. So they have to dumb it down for us because we're so damn stupid. Thank you. I got the message.
Yeah. I think the real problem is we need to get a lot of these people who are having problems out of the government schools and in the competitive schools. But that's a story for another day. But I did before leaving this topic, though, I just wanted to bring back the quote that I've brought up a million times. But, it really speaks to that influx of migrants that we had. With Milton Friedman, there's no doubt that free and open immigration is the right policy in a libertarian state, but in a welfare state, it is a different story. The supply of immigrants will become infinite. And that is literally what we saw under Biden, Kamala Harris. So it's socialism ruins everything. And what should be a relatively beautiful thing is people freely moving so that they can do an honest day's work somewhere else in the world because maybe they want to try something there, or maybe they have people who are family or friends that they want to be around there. And socialism turns it into something ugly because then you have to question everybody's motives about why they're there because you can't just open the door to free stuff for the entire world.
Well, I must say, Milton Friedman is one of my favorite. He and Thomas Sowell, I guess, are my two favorite economists and philosophers, I should say. But I have a slight disagreement.
I know. We've talked about it before.
That particular quote, I have a disagreement with him, but we cool.
Yeah.
We cool.
Yeah. No, Leon's just a little more restrictive on immigration than I am, but I think we both think in general it can be a positive thing, but you would definitely have to get the incentives right.
my presence here, Jason, is evidence that it could be a positive thing, man.
I don't know. Eventually, you may look around and say, "Damn, this is a negative thing. How'd I get here?" I mean, you are in California after all.
Shit, yeah, but whoa. Yeah, what a choice I made. and believe it or not, since I'm in the United States, California is the state where I've lived the longest by far.
Well, I'll tell you, this does bring us in, and we're running a little behind, but we've got a lot to talk about still with respect to, some of the chaos that's now going on in Minnesota because of these underlying immigration and welfare problems, that we're seeing, and it's culminated with a crisis that this person who was a protester. I mean, that's probably the best way, an activist protester, to describe her. I mean, I wouldn't want to necessarily use any more disparaging assumptions than that necessarily, but she was, essentially trying to hinder some ICE operations of picking up migrants because, I mean, this is the problem, right? We saw those huge numbers that happened during the Biden administration. Trump won on saying that, hey, he was going to deport a lot of these people. The election, and so now he's trying to make good on that promise, and so he is going around to a lot of places, and Minnesota being one of them, and his agents are now doing the ugly task of having to go and round people up, and so protesters like this woman Renee Good, she wound up trying to impede an ICE operation, and she wound up being shot to death during that operation. And that is creating a lot of controversy because of the way the country is seeing it. If you're on the right, she was somebody who impeded law enforcement, was committing a crime while she was doing it, and therefore put herself in that situation. And, may have been unfortunate, but she, essentially got, do play stupid games, win stupid prizes type of thing. Whereas to the left, she was just murdered by an out of control law enforcement agency. And that's the way the left is characterizing this. But you can kind of see just in the just remember this headline here. Oh, sorry, I don't have the visual up. This is the visual from CNN on the story, and it's mother of 3 who loved to sing and write poetry shot and killed by ICE in Minneapolis. So, I mean, not that that's funny, but the headline is funny in the sense that she was an activist, which is going to become really clear as we go into a lot of the details of the story and as we look at video of what happened. But CNN tried to make it out like somehow ICE agents just showed up and killed her for no reason, right? That she was just minding her own business. And so anyways, but that's what's leading to a lot of the protests right now out there. Protests were already starting, but now they're kind of going at a furious rate. And so I'm going to play a video to show you a little bit to characterize some of what's going on there. And and this is I've set this up so you can kind of see what it's like for ICE to have to pull people out of vehicles, some of the crowds that are being around, and the way the violence is escalating. So let's watch this this frame of video here.
Whoa! Troopers, Texas police. Come out of the car. Come out of the car. Come out of the car. Open the window. Go. He's in proceedings. He's good to go. Good to come on the Go in the window.
Watch out behind you. Watch out. Holy. Watch out in front of you. Watch out in front.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Cut it off. Cut it off. Now. Cut it off. Turn off the car. Cut the car off. Cut off. Come out of the car. Come out of the car. Come out. Now. Hey.
So what you just saw was how dangerous it can be for law enforcement to pull somebody out of a vehicle in a parking lot when they don't want to get out. Well, it's a lot harder when it's in traffic, and here's an example of that.
Back the f*** up!
Shame on you! Force is not law! Force is not law! You are not following the law!
things appear to be devolving pretty rapidly with the protesting crowds, where they seem to be, they've started breaking into law enforcement vehicles at this point. So maybe shades of the Summer of Love.
The latest shooting involving Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers happened around 7 p.m. Wednesday. Dozens of protesters smashed through 2 parked, unmarked FBI vehicles. They then forcibly rip out a large lockbox from the trunk and try desperately to open it. The crowd tore through a second vehicle too and successfully broke into the locked container. It was already emptied. One woman we spoke with showed us what she claimed was inside, documents that appear to be from the U.S. Marshal Service.
The whole intel, how they picking them up, how they finding them.
And some protesters have even begun to openly talk about meeting law enforcement with violence.
Won't no ICE agent ever run up on me. I guarantee you they won't. I'll put a hole in their chest the size of a window. Safe line repair, safe line replace. That's what's gonna happen. They touch me. Unarmed woman was killed by ICE. If you think you're about to come and brutalize the people while we're standing here, fuck around and find out. If you are gonna legally arm yourself with something bigger than what they got. Those who serve in the public, they should be fearful of the public. They should be fearful that the public's going to be dissatisfied with their job that they're doing, not feeling like they're tyrants, not feeling like they're bullies because they got guns and body armor and walkie-talkies. That makes them immune to whatever the people would do. I think you want to correct the ideology of the pig and the mentality of the slave catcher, you meet them with equal force.
And that was actually the Black Panthers. I guess they're having a little bit of a revival nowadays, and this particular protests are showing some of that. I also wanted to show another clip of just if you happen to be a counter protester out there. This is kind of like what you should expect. I mean, there's not civility. This isn't like two groups just peacefully exercising their freedom of speech. And it's kind of getting tense. So not only are you seeing things start to get broken into, but you're seeing some fights break out. And this one was kind of is making its rounds because it's a little bit extraordinary how this one worked out. So let me go to this clip.
At this point, this MAGA lone wolf has about reached his breaking point. Here come the rape whistles.
Hey, guys.
So there you can see that was literally just one conservative protester out there. It looked like maybe there might have been one or two others in the crowd, but they didn't get in there to help him. He was taking out a battalion of leftist protesters. But you can see that, I mean, the way that fight started, you know, there were people who were harassing him. They were sticking what do you call it, a megaphone in the guy's ear, right in his face, and even hitting him in the head with it a little bit. And, you know, to think that I mean, here's the crazy thing. Both sides had a right to be there and express themselves, but one side was literally not allowing the other side to peacefully be there. And you know, that's, you know, without that civility, we're going to have issues like this. So what did you think of all of that protester footage, Leon?
Well, you know what I think, Jason? The media, the mainstream media in America, they employ people who call themselves journalists, but they are some of the most dishonest people I've ever encountered in my life. Look at that headline you just showed. This mother of three. Yeah, that one, yes. This mother of three was killed by ICE. Now they're calling ICE Trump's Gestapo. You know, shades of Nazi Germany. But this is a problem that no one will explain to any one of us. When did enforcement of the law become a crime in and of itself? What it is that these people are protesting about, what are they trying to save? These people broke the law. Whether you want to believe it or not, they broke the law. So I know protesting is a constitutional right, but what exactly are you trying to save? Are you trying to say we should give illegals, so-called illegal aliens, the so-called migrants, I should say, some special dispensation that whenever ICE approach them about their status here in the United States, they must say, well, okay, I am special, so you cannot arrest me? Well, I'm an immigrant too. I am. If I'm speeding down the road, I jump in my car and I'm speeding down the highway. If a police officer stops me, I'm an American citizen. Could I say to the police officer, well, I'm an immigrant, give me a break? So here we have these.
If you're in California, maybe you can.
maybe so. So here we have these people, like, okay, it's just tragic what happened to her. This Renee Good. It's tragic. But these people want to give these so-called migrants rights that are more than the rights that American citizens have. This is wrong. This is flat out wrong. You cannot tell law enforcement they cannot enforce the law. If you want that, you go change the law. Go advocate and change the law. But you cannot tell them they are law in the books. They are law in the books, and you could stop law enforcement agents, whether it's ICE or the regular police. You cannot stop them from enforcing the law. And this woman tragically learned a very valuable lesson. When there is a law enforcement operation ongoing, you do not in any way interfere, impede, or instruct that operation. You're committing a crime by doing that. So when she got out there and she decided to block the traffic or whatever she has decided to do, a police officer gave you a command to get out of your car. If she had followed those commands, she would have been alive today. But instead, she tried to attack the police officer with a vehicle.
So instead of you describing exactly what happened, I think now's probably a good time to bring the video in of what happened so that people, our viewers can actually see it. So, we've kind of showed you a little bit of a background of some of the riots and other and protester activity so that you can get a sense of sort of how people are interacting with ICE there. In this case, and this part won't be clear, but she was there blocking traffic for about 3 minutes before we get to the point where all the video takes place of the actual shooting. And so we're gonna show a breakdown, and we took some pieces from Nate the lawyer, his particular podcast that does this, and he had a really good piece on this. So and he even had a follow-up piece. So if you really want to dive in and really get a good solid grounding on all this, and he's got a lot of experience as working as a police officer, a prosecutor, and a defense attorney, so he's really well qualified to listen to in this particular event of what happened. But we essentially took a few snippets of what he had in his video, and that's what we're going to use to talk about here, because he had one of the best put together. So many people are taking this out of context. They're showing you little pieces here and there. We're going to try and give you a overall understanding of what happened, because it's so critical to how this is being framed. And then after we're done with that, I'm going to show you how the politicians are framing all this once you've actually seen it, so you can just kind of see what it is that how they're all spinning this. So anyways, let us then watch the video breakdown of the shooting by ICE of this Renee Good, who was a protester who was trying to impede their operations.
So let's look at the facts. In this footage taken by a bystander just before the shooting, we can see Good's maroon SUV partially blocking the street. Good's partner, seen here outside the car, and ICE officer Jonathan Ross are filming each other. You can see Good in the driver's seat, waving cars by while Ross begins walking around her SUV. 2 more federal officers arrive in this gray truck and approach Good's vehicle while simultaneously speaking to her.
So, law enforcement officers with lights and sirens and in full uniform are ordering a motorist who's blocking traffic to get out of their vehicle.
The whole encounter, from the moment an officer told Good to get out of her car to the third shot, lasted just 7 seconds.
So what we saw there was the view that most people saw in the news at roughly full speed, except for where Nate the lawyer breaks it just to say what the officers were saying as they came up to the car. So you can kind of see what the public was initially seeing and how there might be some ambiguity in just that frame. But Nate the lawyer goes and then breaks it out into 3 separate views. We're not going to watch his entire video. You should go to his site and watch it there because it's about 15 minutes long and it's a really good video. So I definitely encourage you to go there. But we're just going to try and take out some of the clear scenes so you can see exactly what happened, and then we'll talk a little more about it on the show.
Quickly, let's just break down what we just saw.
With the video slowed down, you can see one officer grabs the door handle as Good begins backing up the car. Officer Ross can now be seen filming with his left hand at the front of the car. You can see the front wheels spin forward and Ross draws his gun with his right hand.
So now I want to point you to the front tire and where it's at. The officer's in front of the car and the tire is pointing at the officer. So now if you hit the accelerator, you're going to run right into the officer. And as you can see, the person in the car is hitting the accelerator. That's why the tires are spinning. As you can see, the officer has his gun out. The tires are still pointed directly at the officer and the car is moving forward. Now at the last second, the tires turn away from the officer, but the officer is struck by the vehicle, which you cannot see from this angle.
So that was a breakdown from the angle most people saw in the news. Let's see one that was shot from a distance, but a different angle so that you could see kind of where the officer was at, roughly from the front of the vehicle.
Well, the slowdown version is showing me that when the SUV pulls forward, they make contact with the agent in the street, and then immediately following that contact, you hear 3 gunshots follow.
So as CNN's expert has shown us, the officer was being struck by the vehicle and returned fire while the vehicle was literally hitting him. Here it is in real time.
Finally, here we're going to see the view that the officer saw from his cell phone that he was recording with, just so you can kind of get a characterization of what he was doing in the moment that he was hit and sort of how he got there.
Next, the officer was recording this incident on a cell phone. So now let's look at the incident from the officer's perspective.
I'm not mad, boy. Show your face. I'm not mad. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Oh!
And there you have it. So you can hear him getting hit and yelling, whoa, as the shots were fired. And by the way, those 3 shots were all fired within 1 second of each other. And I believe the impact of the car and the 3 shots together were somewhere between 1 and maybe 1.5 seconds, if they were even over a second. So, I mean, it all happened almost immediately. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. Now, just to give you a little bit of a sense of some of the laws involving this, the moment those ICE officers, who are law enforcement officers, came up to her car and ordered her out of the vehicle, and then she hit the accelerator, she was committing a felony evasion in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. So at that point, she was already in violation. She was of the law, and it was a felony. And at the moment she hit him, that was reckless endangerment at that point, because she was in the middle of felony evasion, right? And she hit him with her car. So, and now you could, even if you want to characterize this as she didn't actually, to say that she didn't intentionally assault him with the car, there's still this issue of this reckless endangerment and a felony evasion that is happening that has, caused this this incident to have occurred. So, so many people who are trying to characterize this as, well, she was just trying to leave, and they should have let her go, and all this. Well, I mean, the point is, I mean, do you believe in law enforcement or not? Kind of thing. Now, you could say you don't like these laws, but that's another issue. And I mean, I probably am not crazy about the way they're doing some of this too, but the point is, if you believe in any laws and a law enforcement officer tells you that you're being detained for arrest and you take off running, you're in violation of the law. It's not simply that you just get to run off because of whatever cause you're participating in here. So anyways, Leon, just curious about what your take is from all of that.
Well, I don't believe in special dispensations to anyone. Okay, we tried that in this country before. It was called Jim Crow, and now we look back at such scorn at that period in our history. But we don't need to go back there. But this is what these protesters are advocating for. And look at this tragedy that have happened. Well, yes, a mother of 3 end up dead because she was too stupid. It's tragic, I understand that. But she is too stupid to understand that a law enforcement operation is going on. You do not get involved. Okay? But she's a protester. A mostly peaceful protester, according to CNN and on all the other dishonest networks. And this is the problem we have. We have this problem where we want to give special dispensations to illegal aliens. We cannot do that. If we do, then we don't have a country. This is what is going on here. Biden and them opened the border. People walked across it. If we're doing that, we don't have a country. If these people are here and they're here illegally, and now we want to return them to their place of origin, and we think it's wrong to do that, we don't have a country, because we are saying that people can violate our sovereignty as they damn well please. They can break our laws as they damn well please, and there should be no consequences. What kind of country would we have then? Would I get that right to break the law as I damn well please? Would I get that right? I'm an American citizen. Would I get that right too? So this is the problem we have. This is the problem that we have. We have to be careful when we start distributing the special dispensation to any group of people, whether they're illegal aliens, whether they're American citizens, or whoever they are. We cannot do this. We cannot give special dispensations to anyone. Equality under the law. That's one of the core values in this land, and we should fight to keep it.
Well, and more to the point too, Leon, is there's obviously there's a lot of disagreement. I mean, people on the left are calling this murder, and we're a lot of people on the right tend to think of this as no, she died as a result of a resisting arrest. But this is think about, though, when you talk about special rules for different groups and all that. Think about what we're telling law enforcement in that case. Now, we just watched this video, and this officer had a car that was, the wheels were spinning, and the car was aimed at him. The car hit him, and he discharged his weapon as the car hit him. And if you're going to say that no matter what kind of law enforcement you are, that you are the one who's at risk of going to jail in that case, if you respond with force, I mean, you don't know what the intent of that person is in that second. I mean, it's one thing to Monday morning quarterback this, right. It's not like they knew who this woman was. It's not like they knew that she wasn't, a crazy homicidal maniac like CNN tries to claim, mother of 3. They had no idea she's a mother. What her, for all they know, she could be some crazy, underground weather group terrorist or something. They really have no idea. And the public is asking that the agent be able to Monday morning quarterback, just like they were, of who this woman is, what her values were, and any of this stuff. She was in control of a car, evading arrest, and the car was aimed toward him and it hit him. And he fired almost immediately as he was being hit, right? So, I mean, then the shots came after. So he didn't fire before he got hit, but the shots, were within a fraction of a second of being hit. If you are going to say that you're going to call a cop a murderer because of that, with that kind of evidence then you're not going to have anybody who's ever going to risk being a law enforcement officer.
Exactly.
Why would anybody take on that risk? You're telling them that there's no situation where they can actually exercise force to enforce the law, which, all laws have to be carried out, with the threat of force, right? I mean, as a libertarian, we know that if all laws are ultimately backed by a gun, which is why we really don't want a lot of these laws, right? But if you are going to be one of those types of people who are promoting laws, like socialists, they want tons of laws.
Oh yes.
That's a lot of guns that you're putting out there, pointed at people to comply. And in this case, they were pointed at one of yours. And she didn't comply, and this is what happened, unfortunately. But yeah, so I just, it strikes me that if you're going to tell us now, hey, maybe there's more evidence that we haven't seen yet. And, maybe we'll find out that he knew this woman and he wanted to kill her and all that, but that's not on the table. What we know is what we saw in the video. And based upon what we've seen, people are calling this guy a murderer, which is just nuts. So yeah.
But that is a problem, though. We have the media and some of these protesters and everything with the Monday morning quarterbacking, and they're trying to make, not the woman, they're trying to make law enforcement the bad guy in this thing. They're trying to make law enforcement the evildoer in this thing. When the man was just doing his job. That's what was he there for. He was just doing his job. Okay? And then this woman tried to run him over with a car. And he killed her.
Yeah. But I don't even know if she tried to run him over, but the point is she almost did run him over. That's the whole point. Right. Regardless of what her intention was, she was clearly fleeing arrest at that point. And we know that fact, and that's a felony. And then she ran into him when she committed the felony. So it's really, this is from A to B. I mean, this should be pretty simple for people, and yet they're so tied up with their tribes that
yes, it gets back to this thing. They're just out there inciting violence is what they want to do. They want to make life uncomfortable for ICE. They want to have violence against them, and there is violence being committed against ICE. If they respond, then they're the Gestapo. They're shades of Nazi Germany, and this is where the dishonest media. And even though I have to give CNN a little bit of props, because very early after that incident, they did show a frame by frame, and they did say that the shooting was justified. I don't know if they used those exact words, but they certainly implied that the shooting was justified.
They implied that there could be justification, as I think the way they framed it, which that's the point, right? Based upon the evidence that we're seeing, it could be justified, right?
Exactly.
And that's all we're saying. There's so many people out there who want to condemn this person before we know. In fact, let me bring up now a video of politicians from both sides who are kind of prejudging this when there hasn't been a trial. I mean, the whole point of our system is that when something happens, there's supposed to be an investigation and a trial, not everybody jump on social media and say, let's just see who gets more votes, and that's the side that wins this thing. Okay. So let me show the video, Leon, and then I'll bring it back to you so that you can comment on it, because I think some of the comments here are pretty outrageous. So let me bring this up.
And agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle. She refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism.
The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous.
And here is Trump chiming in on social media to let everybody know that he felt Renee Good was a paid agitator who essentially had assaulted the ICE officer, and that the ICE officer was simply defending himself. So now you've heard political leaders on the right jumping in, giving their take on this whole thing. Now let's hear some of the political leaders from the left giving their take.
If that is following his training, then I think there are larger questions about the training that's being provided to ICE agents. I think we can all see that video and come to our own conclusions that that ICE agent murdered a woman in Minneapolis. And it is a glimpse into what has been a year full of cruelty.
What we saw today was a criminal murder a woman and shoot her in the head while she was trying to escape and flee for her life. And I think what we saw today was a manifestation of every American's worst nightmare, which is their government turning into a tyranny.
Do you believe he should be arrested, the officer involved?
I think what we saw was a murder today, and I think that we need, of course.
You said that she was fleeing for her life. Do you know that she was fleeing?
I think we saw this vehicle, and listen, part of a due process is to allow an investigation of what transpired and what occurred. I think what...
Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying. To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
That know that law enforcement professionals, real ones, not the fake made up ICE, probably Trump's new army to attack citizens of the United States. Did you hear what I said? No law enforcement professional wears a mask. None. None. And so we stand here today with all those who stand against the made up fake, what you can call ICE professional law enforcement. I don't call them none of that. I call them made up fake wannabe law enforcement. Because what they do is against not only legal law, but the moral law. And the fake, whatever they call them, because I can't say the name, but the criminal in the White House would not be able to keep you from going to jail.
You know what? That woman at the end was a police chief in Philadelphia chiming in. You know, but and she actually got a lot of her rant went a lot longer than that, and she had a lot of details wrong as far as the law goes.
She is incompetent as she sounds.
Yeah, but I really want to draw you back to what AOC said, because the reason I let the clip go a little extra beyond what she said about him being a murderer is because one of the reporters said, well, do you really know that she was fleeing and why she wanted? Says, well, that's what an investigation is for. After she just called the guy a murderer. I mean, AOC is one of the stupidest lawmakers I've ever seen. And I mean, there she was just owning herself in that thing. And it's just absolutely nuts, going on about how he's a murderer. He's a murderer. He's a murderer. Do you really know? Well, that's why we need an investigation.
You know, Jason, to be honest, I have to correct something you just said. I think calling AOC stupid is really making stupid look bad, really and truly, really, seriously. I mean, that woman is out to lunch. Well, if you remember a little bit about her, she was the one who told us we only had 12 years to live on the planet, right? She was the one who told us that. And I think we're still here, and I ain't hear nobody talking about that anymore. All right.
Yeah, I think we're almost 12 years. We're 1 or 2 years short of her thing that we're running out of time.
Running out of time. Yes. And now she give us another gem. Okay. I don't know if she looked at the video, but if she did, and she still came to the conclusion that she did, then that she's suggesting in that video you just showed, then I really have to stand by what I just said, Jason. when you call this woman stupid, you're making stupid look bad, man. Come on.
Well,
You know?
remember, in January 6th protesters, she thought they were there to rape her. that's literally what she thought it was all about.
Imagine that. Imagine that. I could make a comment about that, but it wouldn't be fit for the show.
Well, I mean, maybe that's why all these protesters have the rape whistles going. I don't know. It's an AOC thing. They're all worried that this is the ICE is just there to rape them.
Yes, right. Yes.
Yeah. But I've got to say, the one thing I did want to hit before we, move off of this topic into our Knucklehead Noise Patrol is that, as far as immigration goes, I mean, there really is a human cost to all of this deportation stuff. And there's just a short video that I wanted to show about somebody, one family being impacted by this. And, as far as who's to blame, that's, I think it's clear that, Joe Biden set all this in motion with his open the door to welfare and migration, but there is a real human toll that shouldn't be lost in all this. And so here's a short video of one family's experience there in Minnesota. And I just can't imagine, having that situation of having somebody pulled out of your house by the government. But, this is this problem. I mean, socialism literally makes everything ugly. And that's where I think we've gotten to at this point. So, yeah.
These are the things, you could always find these heart-wrenching stories. And, you obviously feel the pain of these people. But you can't get away from the fact that the government represented by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris caused this suffering upon people. Just because Trump is trying to enforce the law does not mean he's responsible for the heartache that we are seeing here. So it's heart-wrenching. There's no doubt about it. Even that woman getting shot, of course, you will feel the pain. She has a young son, I believe. I don't think she has 3 children. I don't remember seeing that anywhere. But at least I know she has a young son. Or maybe it's 3. I don't know. But imagine the pain that these people, these children or child would be going through. There's no doubt about it. There's, like you said, you call it a human cost, and that's a good word. Some good words. But you're always caught between these heart-wrenching stories and trying to make the law right, in terms of how it deal with people who break it. There's always that place you stand, and even though these stories are heart-wrenching, I just have to stand on law enforcement. I really do. As hard as it is at times, as painful as it may be at times, I have to stand on law enforcement.
But and that's why, I really like Milton Friedman's take, even though I don't want to get too far into that. But, he starts off his statement by saying there's no doubt that in a libertarian society that migration, relatively open borders is the right call, because that's allowing people to form relationships that are voluntary and consensual with one another, and the government largely staying out of it. The problem is the government isn't staying out of it in a collectivist state. They are taking money from some people and handing it to others. And in the case of Democrats, they're clearly, as we saw with all this stuff in Minnesota, they're taking money from honest taxpayers and handing it to people who are coming in, and it's being abused, and that's the problem, right? Socialism poisons everything. So the incentives of socialism are just societal cancer, and so yeah, and
you'll have no disagreement from me, because but I just have to add, even if we could get that libertarian state, it's going to end up just like Minnesota.
Yeah, you have to get people to live it. You got to get people really
to live it. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
because otherwise they're just going to go back to the incentives of you empower government to do something. Concentrated power in government gets captured, and that's what we're seeing in Minnesota. It's being captured and handed over to special interest groups, and
it is. That is why it is vitally important to keep government in check. That maybe you might
very small box, very small.
Small, exactly.
Box smaller,
very small box.
Crush it like a diamond.
and they can't be handing out. They can't be handing out our taxpayer dollars like candy. They cannot be doing that, because if they could do that, they will always corrupt the system. Always.
Well, I think now is a good time to just jump into a quick Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and it's all related to this, so we don't really have to open up a whole new thing. But one of the things that is, what we talked about before about the nation having two separate views of this whole incident, and what could lead the left to some of their ideas about law enforcement, right? About these kind of deranged views, and the things we've heard is, well, why didn't they just shoot the tire? Stuff like that. And so I want to bring up a video from a show I watched that they literally had this sort of debate on there, and we've kind of capped it down to we've sort of honed it down so it's a small segment, but this really gets at the nub of things, that there's an epistemological crisis in our country where people don't seem to be able to agree on what we're seeing. I mean, there's just like two wildly different ideas of reality going on here. And I think that's captured a little bit in this Knucklehead Noise Patrol. So let me bring this up.
Exactly are the next steps. To me, from my purview from the video that I saw, it doesn't look great for DHS, because like you said, it seems like the person was trying to drive off and not ram a police officer.
But you can't just drive off when
you
the
can't
police
run away
take
from the police
car,
you also,
right?
You also shouldn't be killed for that. Like, right? They could have shot the tire. There's many things that you can do.
No,
right?
They don't shoot the tire.
Okay, but there are many other things you can do. It's like when somebody gets killed, you could have shot them in the leg. There are many things that you can do.
No.
You have to shoot somebody in the head. This woman was killed.
The police
police
don't shoot you in the leg ever.
Okay.
That's not part of police.
Again, so we need to have a conversation about whether somebody needs to die because ICE is in neighborhoods doing policing for immigration.
If the police,
and so no matter of the stipulation of where police,
is an important piece of
so tell me what's the misinformation about? They can't shoot anywhere else but someone's head. That's what I want to know.
The police are.
So Rising is a show I often watch, and it's a great exchange between usually a left-leaning person and a libertarian. In this case, the libertarian is Robbie Suave, and the left-leaning person is Lindsey Granger. But this is an excellent illustration of how the left has no clue of what it is to pull a gun on somebody and shoot, and what police protocol would be in these cases. And she imagines that you could shoot somebody in the leg. I've wondered where she got that idea from.
You have to teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg. There's way.
So where does the left get their ideas about how law enforcement actually works? Is it from Hollywood, from way back when land?
The Lone Ranger. Let us go. Stay where you are. Drop your gun. Stop it, Dale.
And so there you can see in the Lone Ranger, he was always shooting the gun out of people's hands. So he didn't have to kill them, right? He shot the gun out of their hands.
He's that good. He's that good. Yeah, shoot the gun out of there, and the poor guy will live forever. I think somebody needs to educate these people. What is that woman's name on Rising? What is her name?
Lindsey Granger. So she's the current left leaner on the show. That's the main person. They occasionally bring in some others, but she has some staying power. So
if she keep on going in this direction, she ain't gonna have no staying power. So let me give you a little bit of wisdom, Miss Lindsay. Okay, let me give you a little bit of wisdom. The rule is very clear and it's very simple. If a police officer draws his gun, he draws a gun, he shows you the gun. If you continue whatever action you're doing, the police officer will then shoot. And when he shoots, he must shoot to kill. There is no way to get around that. Long ago,
I got to say, it's not necessarily to kill, but it's to end the threat. And end the threat oftentimes means shooting for the center of the mass, which is probably going to kill somebody if it hits. So, that's the.
Yeah, you can see.
They're usually not aiming for the head. Let's put it that way. They're aiming for the center of mass.
well said. Aiming for the center of mass and shooting to kill. But I will accept your clarification that you shoot to end the threat, and usually that means you're going to shoot some bodily part, or you might hit the head and kill the person. But there's no such thing as protocol that say allow you to shoot to shoot them in the foot or shoot out tires if it's possible. Well, I mean, sometimes you could do that, right? If somebody's fleeing, you could probably shoot out the tires. If the person is not visible, you could stop the vehicle by shooting out the tires. That is possible. But when the person is in front of you and coming at you, like we had with Nicole Good or Renee Nicole Good, when the person's in front of you, there's no issue there involved. Okay. Whatever it is that the police officer has to do, he could show you the gun, he can tell you to stop, but if you don't, he's going to end the threat, as Jason correctly says. And that ending of the threat usually means the ending of your life. Usually. Sometimes it don't, but usually it does. And I wish Lindsay and all our left-leaning idiotic friends would just understand that simple concept. Long ago, police officers used to shoot people in years ago in this country. Used to shoot people in the leg, or at least try to shoot them in the leg. And you know what happened? Several police officers got killed in the process of that. So I don't know when this policy of if you have to shoot to end the threat, as Jason put it.
Leon, I'm sure there's some people who probably watched The Lone Ranger and maybe they tried at some point to shoot the gun out of somebody's hands, but those people got eliminated from the gene pool pretty quick. Trying to shoot the gun out of bad guys' hands. They're all gone now, just like the show The Lone Ranger.
Well, I guess whether I believe in the creator, a godly creator, I believe in evolution as a creator. These people, the threat of these people were ended. They got eliminated from the gene pool. Their threat was ended. So maybe that's a good thing, because they probably would end up getting more people killed than they need to. So but on a serious note, yeah. Police officers, law enforcement officers in general, have a very dangerous job to do. Okay? You have these idiots talking about defunding the police. This has these idiots talking about, well, they should shoot them in the leg and blah, blah, blah. This dangerous job that they must do. Of course, there are instances where police officers go off the rails and they make mistakes, okay? Even this George Floyd thing where they burned down our cities because of George Floyd's killing. I don't know what was the justification for that. Yes, I think Derek Chauvin might have went off. He might have actually his initial action was legal. It was an illegal action, but maybe he went on too long. Fine, I can understand him being punished for that. But you have to burn down the cities? George Floyd was a common criminal. That's what he was. He once held a gun to a pregnant woman's head. Nobody ever talks about that.
Well, and remember too that regardless of what you think of Derek Chauvin's, exercise of his duties, George Floyd had taken a either a fatal overdose or near fatal overdose of fentanyl. So he had literally swallowed this stuff just before this whole event happened, and that's why. I mean, so I mean, he just like Renee Good, he had something to do with his situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. Renee Good failed to obey a police command and almost ran over a police officer, and it ended her life. George Floyd took this drug, this heavy drug of fentanyl or whatever the hell he took, and that kind of stuff. So, and then he encountered the police. So Chauvin might have, he didn't kill him. Chauvin probably didn't kill him, but Chauvin probably contributed to his death. Okay.
And too, just to not let Floyd completely off the hook either, just as taking drugs, he was also committing a crime too, which is why the police were called in. So he was committing counterfeit. He was passing counterfeit bills. So,
oh Jesus Lord!
Nope, it looks like the thing froze. Okay, there you are, Leon. It's
yes, yeah. But the point is, though, rationality seemed like a very difficult concept for a lot of people these days. Oh, I'm going dark here, Jason. Yes, rationality is a very difficult concept for people these days, because we have this dishonest media out there that trying to throw gasoline on every little incident to make it either a racial incident or make it something that is ethnic, some kind of ethnic thing or whatever it is, just to gin up the people, to incite some kind of violence or something. Oh, we're gonna protest. What are you protesting? What are you protesting? You don't even have a investigation that was done to say, well, this actually happened or that actually happened. You don't even have that, but you're protesting. What is happening to our country when you and your dishonest people who calling themselves reporters and doing nothing but inciting violence? What?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Well, and the one thing that is interesting about you bringing up the George Floyd thing too is it was yet another instance where essentially, I don't know if it was half and half, but it was one very large portion of the country saw it one way and another fairly large portion of the country saw it another way.
Yes.
And that's, again, I mean, this is what we seem to be happening over and over again. And some of this, you would think that the media needs to do a little better, right? I mean, we need to have people who are trying to be a little bit objective when they're taking this job on and not completely just tanking for one side. And that's the problem we currently have, is that I mean, even though I agreed more with the right than the left on this particular take of the Renee Good shooting, because we heard what came, like, for instance, when what's the name? JD Vance said that he has complete immunity, and well, no, that's not true. I mean, even though he's a lawyer, you should know that if he was acting outside the bounds of his job, he doesn't have immunity. And that is kind of what the left is claiming, that he wasn't following a lot of proper protocols. Now that remains to be seen. You have to take that to court, and and I think in fairness to JD Vance, he probably just looked at that and said, yeah, he's following protocols. I think if you're on the right, it does look like but still that needs to be looked over in an investigation. But that said, I mean, and then of course the left was just completely nuts. I mean, claiming that not even willing to admit that she was committing a felony evasion, right, of an arrest. I mean, how can any law enforcement officer look at that when a police officer or any law enforcement officer tells you to exit the vehicle and you take off running, that's not felony evasion at that point? I mean, it's just like you're completely dishonest if that's what you're going to tell everybody. So it's just nuts. But
indeed.
Well, I think. Oh, sorry, Leon. Go ahead.
No, that's totally nuts. I'm just agreeing with your statement. Yes.
Well, yeah, we've definitely had a long one this time, but of course, this was a long issue. This whole Minnesota thing is still carrying on, so I'm sure we'll be talking about it in the upcoming weeks a little bit because it ain't over. And Trump is talking about the Insurrection Act because of some of the stuff that's going on. So there may be consequences that keep getting ratcheting up going into the future. So I guess we will wait and see. But until the next show, think about what you can do in your community to advance the ball for liberty. We saw Nick Shirley doing it out there in Minnesota, and I think he's running around the world doing it in other places too. Hopefully he comes here to California and starts doing it because we need somebody to show up some of that fraud here in California. So, but hey, if you're sitting here watching and you wonder how you can get involved, if you spot some fraud, maybe you can, get involved in illuminating it for everybody too. From if you spot some fraud from government. So anyways, thanks so much for watching us. And until the next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.